In our little video series of useful packages for everyday Sublime Text use, we've covered package control, the package that allows you to easily install and update packages in your copy of Sublime Text, and package resource viewer, which allows you to look at and manipulate the contents of those packages. And we talked about how if you create an override on a package file, you have to be careful because Sublime will continue to use it even if the underlying package was in any way modified. And that's why the topic of this week's video is a package that allows you to determine when that's happening and help keep your copy of Sublime Text running smoothly. Override Audit. Hello, fellow Sublime Text fanatics. ODAT Nerd here. Welcome to this video on Override Audit, which is a package that I myself am the author of. But before we get into any of that business, as usual, as a reminder, if you're finding any of these videos helpful or useful in any way, please use those buttons down below to thumb, subscribe, and share as you deem appropriate. And if you have any questions or comments on the content of this video, any of the videos on my channel, or suggestions for other Sublime Text topics you'd like me to cover, including other packages you think I should add to this video series, you can drop those down in the comment section below or hit me on Twitter at ODATNerd. The topic of today's video is Override Audit. Now, Override Audit has a special place in my heart. It's near and dear because I am its author. So take this whole video with a grain of salt if I say just how super awesome this package happens to be. And I should also point out there's a video introduction to just Override Audit and what it can do for you and how to use it on my channel as well. There's a link to that down in the description below. So if you want more details on what all Override Audit can do for you in your copy of Sublime Text, that is the video to watch. As we covered in the previous video, you may want to modify the contents of a package. And in that last video, we modified the exec.py plugin in the default package to change how much precision the timing information in the output panel has when you execute the build. And I mentioned that when you do that, Sublime will use that copy of the file over the one that it was shipped with in perpetuity, even if that package file changes in some fashion. And that is minor cause for alarm because you could potentially mask bug fixes or feature updates if you don't keep on top of things. And that's why I created Override Audit. As we do in all of these videos, we can be reminded that if we use discover packages from the command palette, the packagecontrol.io website will open up for us. And if we look for override, there's a few packages and Override Audit is the top one. And we can click on that to see. Now, unlike Package Resource Viewer, Override Audit is not nearly as popular, but it does have a README, a very voluminous README. So remember that whenever you're looking at a new package, you may want to look and see how to install it and how to use it. And there's a variety of settings. This stuff is all covered in the documentation and in that video, so we're not going to cover that here. But what we are going to do is say install package, and we are going to choose Override Audit. Press enter to install it, and the first thing that happens is we see this package control messages here, which is telling us that this has been installed. And there is also this information here giving us a quick start about Override Audit. We're going to go ahead and close that, but you should very much do as I say and not as I do, and read through that if you're new to Override Audit to get some key information. As with all packages, if we go now into the preferences, package settings, there's an entry for Override Audit, and you can view the documentation. This will actually open the documentation for Override Audit in your web browser. You can view its settings, and you can view the key bindings that it applies because there are a couple. Here I'm going to be using the ones for Windows, but we also have commands here in the Tools menu that provide a variety of items. These, of course, are also in the command palette, and we'll be seeing those for the remainder of the video. But the main crux of Override Audit is being able to generate override reports. So if I choose this, we get this simple override report tells us when it was generated, and it's telling us that there is an override on exec.py. Now, this information here is indications of how this package is actually installed. So if we were to go into the command palette and say package report, like so for the override audit package report, here we'll see a complete list of every single package that is installed in my personal copy of Sublime Text, the one that I use for my screencast. There are 57 total videos, and there are also this other information that indicates that 51 of these packages are shipped with Sublime. 4 of them are in the installed packages folder. 3 of them are unpacked in the packages directory, and there's one package that's currently in the list of ignored packages, and I don't have any dependencies. And the remainder of this is a table which lists all of the packages in Sublime. And there are 3 columns of information. The first column contains an S if this is a package that ships with Sublime Text. The bulk of all packages in this list, for me personally, ship with Sublime. Things like the default package and the ActionScript, AppleScript batch file packages, and all of those. There are some packages that have the second column filled. That's filled with an I to indicate that this is a package that's installed as a Sublime package file in the installed packages directory. And that is visible by using browse packages from the command palette and going up one directory level. We can see there's a directory named installed packages. And if you look inside, there are packages in here that are installed as Sublime package files. These are files that package control itself has installed for me. There's just a few of them here. And the right-hand column has a U in it if this package appears unpacked in the packages folder. The default package is 1, and that's because of what we did in the previous video when we created that override on the exec.py, which is also available over here. And if we were to scroll down this window to the user package, we can see the user package is just strictly an unpacked folder. Now, in order for a package to be able to contain an override, it has to appear in more than one of these lists. And in the particular case of the default package, like we're looking at here, the default package is both a shipped package and it's also represented in the unpacked packages folder. That means it's possible for it to contain overrides. And in fact, it does. It contains one. It contains an exec.py override. Now, if we were to right-click on this, there are various command entries that are added here for us. We can edit this file, which will just open it directly up for editing, like so. We can diff the file, which shows us exactly what's different between the shipped version of the package and the version in our packages folder. And we can see that all we really did was change the .1 to .3 in a couple of places. And we could also delete our override if we no longer needed it. And we can also refresh this report, which you would do if you were modifying files outside of Sublime while you have this open. And we can see the report generated time changes when you do that. Now, the main feature of this is to be able to easily tell us what overrides exist, because we want to be able to find that. My custom personal installation of Sublime, not the one I use for this, has a few of them in the default package. Sometimes you want to see exactly what is different. What did I change in this? And the answer is that. There's also key bindings to allow you to easily swap between this and this and view the documentation for that operation as well. And if you have a fair number of overrides in a variety of packages, you can actually generate a diff report as well. Or, sorry, that is called bulk diff, isn't it? Yes. You can choose to bulk diff every package or a single package. I'm going to say all packages. It doesn't really matter here. And here we get a report that looks similar to the override report, but now we can see that there is in the default package, which again is both shipped and unpacked, an exec.py file, and the contents of those changes are right here. And of course, we could also right click on this to perform operations there. We can even right click on this package to generate a diff inside of it, or again, to refresh the report. This is great for what it is, as long as you remember that you actually did this sort of thing. But what about that case we covered in the previous video, where I said that, if this package was ever upgraded in some fashion, our version of the exec.py plugin would take precedence over the one that would possibly have been updated. This is one of the key features of this particular package here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just close all of these files here like so. There's a special extra report called the expired override report that you can generate, and uh, it tells you not only if there's an override, but specifically if it's one of those ones that could potentially have changed. And you can generate a report such as that by generating override report only expired, which here contains nothing because we haven't done that part of the demonstration yet. But that report is also generated whenever you restart Sublime. And it also happens whenever packages are updated. So if a package gets updated and it was one that you have an override in, you will immediately see a potential warning report like the one we just saw. And you'll also see one of those in Sublime as soon as it opens. For the purposes of our demonstration, let's create one more override. I'm going to use a package resource viewer for that. And in the default package, I'm going to edit the main menu. And if I search for the text exit, we're going to find us the menu items for exiting Sublime. We can see if we look in the file menu, the exit item is labeled exit, like so. Now, on Windows, it's exit. On Linux, it's named quit. And there isn't an entry here for Mac OS because you don't quit Mac OS applications from the file menu. You do it from another location. But let's say we didn't want this to say exit. We wanted it to say terminate, like so. And in that case, maybe the mnemonic would be E instead. Now, as soon as we save that, we have created an override. So right up in the file menu, it now says terminate instead of that. And if we close this tab now and generate a new override report, like so, we can see there's now two overrides in our default package, the exec plugin that we modified in the previous video and that change that we just made just now. And then let us pretend that Sublime has just popped up a warning saying that there's a new version of it and it asks us if we want to install it, and we say yes. So it's going to stop itself and restart once the installation is completed. So we'll go over here and terminate Sublime right now. After Sublime finishes updating itself, it restarts itself, and as soon as it does so, automatically this has appeared an expired override report. Now, in that little cut there, what I did was change the timestamp on my copy of the exec plugin to be really old. When Sublime starts afresh, OverrideAudit checks to see if the version of Sublime is different than it was the last time it started. And if it is, it does a check to see, is there a potential for an override that is expired now? And what it has determined is that the date of the last access time on the exec.py plugin is older than the default Sublime package file, which means that the default package is newer than my plugin, and thus perhaps this plugin is broken in some fashion. So what I would do is go over here and diff it, and I can determine, yeah, there was no change here. This is a false alarm. So what I would actually do is come over here and right click on this and say freshen. And it's going to ask me, do you want to do this? And I'll say yes. And all that does is change the timestamp on this file to make it current so that OverrideAudit knows this file is safe. Alternatively, if that diff pointed out all kinds of changes, you could use the functionality that we saw previously to jump over to the file and edit it, or you could also come over to the report and decide to delete it if you no longer needed it, and things of that nature. There's a lot more that Override Audit can do for you, and I urge you to go ahead and view that link down in the description if you're more interested in this. But in my opinion, and it may be biased because I'm the author of the package, if you're using Package Resource Viewer, and you probably should be because it makes a lot of things easier, you should also be using Override Audit because it'll help you make sure that any changes that you made aren't going to cause you problems down the line. And it also makes it a lot easier to just keep track of what it is you changed and how you changed it as well. So there we have a very brief introduction to the Override Audit package, why you might want to use it. And as a matter of fact, you could just install it and never manually invoke any commands. And as we saw, it'll just do its own thing when Sublime upgrades or when packages are upgraded to let you know if you have modified a file that is perhaps in need of some attention. So it really does help you keep your Sublime text running a lot smoother and in tip-top shape and stop you from missing out on cool features like that. So I enjoy the package. I hope if you are a user of it that you enjoy it as well. And I also hope that you enjoyed this video and found it useful. And if you did, please use those buttons down below to thumb, subscribe, and share as you deem appropriate for your enjoyment level. And of course, if you have any questions or comments on the content of this video or any of the videos on the channel or suggestions for other topics in Sublime you'd like me to cover, you can drop those down in the comment section below or hit me on Twitter at OdatNerd. But until the next video in the package parade, this is OdatNerd asking you to please have a sublime day.